Welcome. We bid you welcome. John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad, coming to you from my music corner of the world, from the Music Nut program. Go check it out, folks. Go like and share, subscribe to it. John the Music Nut, how you doing, my friend?
With pinpoint precision and exquisite diction, to Professor has joined the chat. Peter.
Nice. Peter Jones, welcome
Hi,
back, my
John.
friend.
Hello, John times two.
Great to have you back, my friend. Great to
Nice
have
to
you
see
back.
nice to see both of you. The pleasure's mine.
So up to the limit episode 4. The first one for Portrait. Still, I think, on Brain throughout the rest of the European areas, except Restless and Wild. So let's see. Let me get my notes together here. So, yes, released in 82 in continental Europe, 83 in the US and the UK. This is the first time that we get Dieter Dirks producing them. Michael Wagner is still involved in the um, engineering and mixing. We have the first credits for Deffy, Gabby, the
Yep.
Wolf's former wife and former manager before she retired. Let's see. Yeah, released in Brain Records in Germany, a heavy metal label in the UK, and then Portrait, which is a division of Epic and CBS here in the US. A couple singles, Fast as a Shark in 1982, November in Spain, and Restless and Wild in 82 as well. We finally got some chart action. Not much. Dutch album charts, it went up to 47. Swedish charts does really well here. It went to number 7. And it just gets into the UK charts at number 98. And otherwise, this thing gets wonderful reviews. Um, Writing off its predecessor, Breaker, which was a very stellar album. So now we're in the a totally different type of driver's seat. So as we do with all of our guest shows, Peter Jones, first off, of course, as we did with as we coined the term with the Judas Priest series, your point of entry into Accept, and then I will let you dissect Restless and Wild.
Very good. It had to have been within a couple weeks of that US release, off at college, but it was still a pretty bi-weekly ritual to head to the music store and look for new music. And as with a lot of the other bands I've talked about, because I'm older, Maiden and the Queensryche EP and all these other Triumphs, Rock and Roll Machine, the version with the pseudo concert stage with the flamethrowers and the double neck and the double bass kit. The album cover of this instantly caught my attention, and this was not the dual flying V. This was the one that you guys held up. Yeah. I think both are really cool. But this one I think it's really badass. I think it's hard to look at that and go, maybe they're not so good. But, sometimes we struck out, but not here. And I got it home and opened up. And of course, mine was on bloody red vinyl. Now, I should have kept it. I'm not a collector anymore, so I've gotten rid of it decades ago. But mine was on red vinyl, so it's not easily forgotten. And as with a lot of things, I was with my friend Ken and his roommate Gary, and we were at their room ready for a listening party. And off we went. And after we heard this, it wasn't more than a couple days or so. I went back to see if I could hunt up some other stuff. And then I got Breaker almost immediately right after and then worked my way back. And it's been a lifelong joy since then. So that's my introduction. So
Very cool. Yeah, I have to be honest. That end of 82 into 83, or not end of 82, but mostly 82 into 83. Good Lord, what a time to be alive. When you think of some of the classic albums that were coming out at that time, especially if you're into heavy metal.
yeah.
I mean, my God, Screaming for Vengeance, Number of the Beast. Then you get this one. And I'm sure there's many more that I can throw out there, but I mean, there was some great material coming out about this time.
Yeah. And again, when you've got it on the newer release section and that album covers sitting right out there in the open.
Mm-hmm.
So we,
Instant grab.
yeah, we cracked it open and we put it on, and our journey begins with one of the most interesting introductions of any album you'll ever get. It's not very long, but it's very effective. And of course, you know me, I have to dig. So, what is this little hi D, hi do, hi da? What is that? It is an 1830 folk song written by Albert von Schleppenbach.
There's a
And you
name for
say,
you.
wow, okay. And I had to practice that one for a while. And it's my German, of course, will be horrible. Ein Heller und ein Watson. That's its name. And what does that mean? Well, it's really, you can break it down in various definitions, but it really comes down to a dime and a penny. And what is it about? Well, the song represents the whimsical reflections of the joys and struggles of life, that you've got money for the necessities, for water, and then money for wine. And the balance and the lightheartedness, and it became a very popular tavern song and a folk song. And it was even used as a marching song during World War II. So here we are, right? And of course, you hear that scratchiness on the needle, and as most people who had never heard it before, you're like, oh, something's wrong, until the needle scratches and this comes out of nowhere, and this thunderously heavy rhythm guitar chunks away with this riff, double bass flame throwing, and off they go. And it is one of the most exciting intros of any album I've ever owned. And it has never left me, and it feels that way. I love having that in there because you know it's coming. And of course, when you've seen them live, you hear that tape come on and you're just, okay, here it comes, wham. And it's just unrelenting. So what do we have here? This is clearly proto-thrash. This is a defining track in the evolution of metal. It's got everything. It's the fully formed accept, in my opinion. The crunching, chugging, and that unrelenting chunk from Wolf. He's the only one who plays on this, even though as Herman, right, is credited on the album. He doesn't play, so all the tracks are Wolf. But Peter and Stefan Kaufman and of course Udo. This is a wildly creatively crafted track. You add it to songs like Exciter by Priest, even song like Stone Cold Crazy from Queen, Symptom of the Universe, Sabbath, Motorhead, that defined what we know as thrash. Let's quote Scott Ian for a second. This is proto-thrash, he says. The intro is this crazy German folk song. Then there's the sound of the needle scratching and a scream. And then this riff comes in with the fastest double bass drumming anyone had ever heard. And it still stands up today and is one of the heaviest songs ever written. And I'm like, I agree. And so what do we have? This isn't just a mindless double bass fury of guitar and these crushing vocals. It's exceptionally well laid out. You start with the double bass and the intro. You get to the verses, all of a sudden the double bass pulls back. It's not there. It's thundering away with the bass and these little harmonic swells and pinch offs with the guitar. It's all about the vocal with this underneath foundation just kind of thumping. But there isn't any double bass. You get to the pre-chorus, you better beware, you better take care, be prepared for a shock, right? More double bass. But back to the verse, pull it back again. And they do that on and off throughout the whole track. And it is done so tastefully that you never get this fatigue of double bass, which anybody who's listened to me knows that's a pet peeve of mine, that it just starts and never stops. And so many bands are, I think, mistaken, thinking that if we do that, it makes it heavier. No, not in my opinion. It starts to wear your ears out. And Ian Pace once said, when he was talking about drummers who were much more technically advanced in his opinion, he says, if you go 180 miles an hour all the time, that thrill of speed has no more merit because you're going 180 miles an hour all the time.
Yeah.
If you go 30 and then you go 180, now there's an excitement level. And that's what's happening here. I think it's just so well done. We get these great, and I'm going to use this word so often here. This band is so tight with their syncopations. They are punching and uniform, and they accent and they nuance. And all of this comes from, I think, the maturation of drummer Stefan Kaufmann. And this is where he takes both the rhythm of the lyric, rhythm of the guitar parts, and picks and chooses where he's punching and jabbing and stabbing. And it, again, breaks your listening up. And you go, oh, wait, what? And it's just like, there's so much to latch onto. And the accept chug is now in its full bloom. The lyrics are just fun. Fog in the streets, a church clock beats midnight, darkness all around, and then syncopation. Da, 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 da. 4 on the snare, thundering, backs off, builds, and we get to the guitar sections. Double bass instantly goes away, and then it builds to this double uniform lead that's very classical in its styling. And we have to talk about Wolf's love of classical music. Mm-hmm. And it's almost Highway Star, like and then the double bass unrelents, and it just builds and builds and builds to this break where the guitar watch out, and then right back into it. And to the end, they do that ending chorus twice. First time, no double bass. Second time, double bass. The energy lifts up and just goes to this thunderously tight ending. And you just wipe your brow and go, okay, that's the opening track. And it's the most important song on the album, in my opinion. And I think it's the most important song in their entire catalog. So that's why I probably spent a little more time on that one. Okay. And then, of course, on the attack, and you hit the last note, boom, then you right away hear this snare drum crack. Crack. Here comes this gallop and this driving in just, it's like a freight train with this ass on fire. And these big, tight power chords and into Restless and Wild. And again, you start with the guitar all of a sudden breaking down into a more moody, atmospheric, while the drums and bass are just crushing underneath. And they build and build and then go back. And those punches, like when they get to the section, now you know your dreams are useless. There's punches on both of those. And then they get to the chorus. Holy smokes, what a riff. I'm like, oh my God. And then it goes back into a nice tight section like the intro. And this is the first song that really has a proper bridge. And we talked about a lot of bridges with Judas Priest, and I do think there are heavy influences of Judas Priest on this record. And I think more specifically British Steel. And because they've got a lot of those sections where it breaks down into that bridge section to get to that stay down, time will hold on. Oh, it sounds really cool. It's got such great melody. And then quick drummers geek out here. One of the coolest drum fills on the whole album comes after How Do You Feel When the Night Is Gone, with the hi-hat and everything, which Christopher, my friend who plays an Accept Now, nails absolutely perfectly because it's essential. And then they get into this great solo, the galloping underneath. And here, I think Wolf's guitar tone is absolutely fully realized. It's rich, it's thick. There's just enough distortion on it that it's not overbearing. It's super tonality. And he's just, oh, man. And they do this nice break go into this quarter note bass drum section where it's just driving back to like the intro verse with sparse guitar. And that only lasts half the verse. Big, full snare drum fill into more heavy. And it just goes underneath. And it's just, Stefan is just doing a clinic here. All these little nuances, when you go back and listen to it and focus on what the drums are doing, they really do propulse and push the track into all kinds of fun places. But the guitars are great. The drumming and bass work is on here is great. The lyrics are fun. I mean, they're just kind of shout choruses, which is kind of what they are known for. Restless and wild. I mean, they're really not even kind of singing. It's kind of like, oh, you know, that's what they do. But it's relatable. And it certainly comes off well live, and it's easy to duplicate, you know, for everybody who's got their horns up in the air. So, you know, there's some accessibility to that. And I love how tight the ending is. So, you know, a couple real tight endings so far. And these are not long tracks. I mean, Restless was about 3:48. This is 4:12. These aren't long. They just kind of drive along. And then we get to Ahead of the Pack, and we have this nice pick scraping down the neck. It's all chunk. Beautiful mid-tempo. It just is so easy to listen to. And this one is a little more melodic than the first two tracks. You know, it's just, man, I don't even know how to describe it. Again, there's syncopations all over the place and really tight punches. And unless you've seen this band live, it's hard to really understand how that makes that band kind of unique, because they use their stage presence, and especially back in the day, they were either the most professionally focused musicians of almost any band I'd seen. Their movements were so coordinated. When they'd stab, when they'd do the, you know, the priest shake back and forth, when they'd go up, when they'd turn, everything all in beautiful unison with the syncopations that were happening within each song that they were playing. I love that when they go to kind of the chorus, they only do the pre once, you know, get up and roll on. They only tease you with one. They quarter eighth note build back to the verse. And these are really good driving, heavy verses. Then they do it twice. And then they have these nice breaks between sections of their songs. Maybe it's only a quarter note. Maybe it's only a symbol or a chord that carries over, but they give you space to breathe for just a second that says, okay, here's a new part. Here's a new section. And it does kind of just like a quick reset. And excuse me, where you're like, okay, again, you are ahead of the pack, more shouty, and you get into the solo section, it starts that chug, and it's nothing more than a bunch of heavy chugging, but with a really nice phase shifter on it. And this is where Wolf just really cuts loose. This is a blistering solo. And not unlike Priest, and again, he's playing both roles. It's in one channel, one style, goes to the other channel, completely different style. And back to and then I love this beautiful na 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 na, and then right back into and then they modulate, borrow something from a pop song, modulate to do that last chorus, super tight. And I'm so into what's going on. And my friends Ken and Gary were all just kind of looking at each other going, what are we listening to? And we're just like really digging it. Yeah. Now we get to shake your heads. And this is really fun. So far, none of these songs have sounded like the other song. Their feels are totally different. We've had a double bass onslaught. We've had a gallop. We've had a more mainstream, but aggressive rock track. Now we have a little more slower and plotty with these big guitar openings with a little bit of vibrato, and the drums and bass are very pronounced here. And not unlike Priest, the rhythm starts in one track, an additional rhythm starts in the other track, fills the sonic spectrum out, and then it changes. One of them's just doing a na na na. The other one comes in, and it just starts chunking, and the balance of the two of them is really nice. Udo screams a lot. It's his vocal style, but I think he's really not physically screaming as much as it may sound. It just is how his voice comes out. But this one is probably the most edgy so far. It's, if you're not into Udo, this is one of the tracks that you're kind of go, maybe. I mean, I like the music, and that's one of the curses of the band Accept. Not unlike King Diamond or anything like that. You either like Udo or you really kind of don't. There's not much in the middle where you kind of go, well, he's okay on these, but not okay. You love him, or it's kind of polarizing. And this is the one track that really could make people kind of just go, maybe not. But it's a really straightforward song. A couple verses, a nice pre-chorus, and then we get the ultimate in shout along, but it's so visually beautiful. Shake your heads till your necks are breaking. I mean, you can just see armies, doing this, and it's so fun, and it's so innocent, and it's almost juvenile. It's not, going to increase anybody's awareness of history or, but it's just simple and fun, and it's energetic, and it's so accessible, and I love that it's accessible. We get that second guitar again, and we get this break section, na 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 na, bam, 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 and they're just so fun. Another great solo section, and then they go back, and then they get a little bit heavier at the end, little bit. This is the one I was upset that they faded, because I thought it started getting really cool. And I kept turning it up
It's
on the
true,
fade
yeah.
out, going, "Oh no, don't stop," or either stop abruptly, so I stopped listening. But we get to Neon Nights, and we're talking. This was side one of the album, and so far we were just like, "Wow, this was really something special." And I put down, "This was Nothing Else Matters Before Metallica." It's got that kind of intro.
Yeah.
And then he kicks in full distortion with the octave uh, simulator on there. It's just growly and nasty, almost shades of a little bit what Brian May was doing back in the day on the beginning of Tie Your Mother Down, that kind of thing.
Right.
And then it just distorts into this long chord, crack, down, and you're just doing exactly what John's doing. You're moving your head already. The drums are super simple. The bass is strong. And when the verse starts, it's one of the most enjoyable things. When the day is done, the night rolls in. Amazing fills all through the song from Stephen Kaufman. Oh, tiny little syncopations. You get to the verse, and it's got a totally different feel than the chorus has a totally different feel than the verses. Neon nights, again, they're syncopating all over the place. And I just love that. Another great drum fill. And I borrowed that one. Gabachi, gabake, gabachi, gabachi, bam. It's classic. Beautiful stuff. More verse, more chorus. They get this breakdown section and the guitar by itself. Oh, and I just na 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 na. And then at the end, we get the double time. It picks up. It's got the more energy, and it's just got this beautiful guitar outro. And again, unlike anything we'd heard on the first 4 tracks, and that makes a pretty impressive side of an album in my view. We get over to side 2. We get Ready. Starts with a very simple drum. I think this is probably the most straightforward the band plays on the record. It's a simple kind of mid-tempo. Guitar starts in one channel. We get the additional guitar in the other, not unlike Priest. I kind of liken this to, a grinder. You don't have to be able to be wise. Something like that from that British Steel era, where it's really kind of just straightforward hard rock. And I don't really think this is too metally. The chords are great, verse, chorus, it's pretty straightforward. We get to a nice section on the bottom, towards the end of the song, with nice heavy quarter notes on the bass drums, with more punches and syncopations. Wolf's solos, again, he does 2 separate solos here, are very entertaining. He's got all kinds of skill, great sound, great vibrato. His licks and his phrasing is exceptional. At 3:41, it's just as long or as short as it needs to be. It's just does what it needs to. So I think it's a simple, straightforward song. I don't really call it filler because I enjoy the track, but that's what we have here. Demon's Night. This one feels very different than everything else that's kind of going on here. Starts out with these kind of tribal drums that kind of just fades in. And then this one is very chunky and very kind of plotty and dinosaur-like in its best kind of analogy. This is my least favorite vocal from Udo. It's just kind of, it's kind of he's kind of all over the place. But I do like how they go back and forth between the original feel, which is a very heavy, and then they get Rolling the Thunder. They get the nice full up tempo. The choruses are more up tempo. They go back and forth to the halftime, back to the full time. All I put on here was listen to the choruses, and again, listen to Stefan Kaufmann's drumming and how he's just picking and choosing and sparkling all this beautiful magic drummer dust all over all over these tracks to make them just really, really fun. I think the choruses are fun. It's a pretty straightforward tune from that point. It goes back and forth, halftime, full time, half. But it's a good rocker. It's got a lot of energy, and I don't see any fade off or think, oh, well, they're kind of running out of ideas here. I think it's still strong, and it started so great that it's kind of hard to keep that level up. But it's a very great tune, and I've always enjoyed that one. We get to Flash Rockin' Man, and to me, this might be my favorite track on the record. This is a shadow of foreseeing, I guess I can use the right word, of kind of what's coming ahead, up to the limit, living for tonight. Those things that'll show up on Balls to the Wall, and especially will show up on Metal Heart. Great opening riff, heavy unison punches, and it just drives and drives and drives, and more breaks and punches, little tiny little breaks, cutoffs that just make the song kind of break up nicely. And you get to the turn on the lights. There's no end in sight. And what we get is this signature syncopation. Fast Rockin' Man. They use it all through their entire catalog. It's one of their main riffs. Maiden's used it quite a bit too. So, but you get this, and then you come in and you get to my favorite part of the entire album. And I can see the band. I can see them moving. I can see everything in perfect unison. It's a well-oiled metallic machine. And I'm just like, it's so simple. It is just 2 chords after the initial chunk. But it's so effective. And then what do? They throw the vocal over the top of it. Oh, it's just so cool. And then it breaks. They get these guitar unisons, and they just kind of go off into this weird kind of little tangent, tight syncopation, boom, right back into it. And then I love the ending. The 4 sections where they go Flash Rockin' Man, and they do a fill or a choke or some kind of embellishment there. And I put, this was before Motley Crue did it in Livewire, folks. Remember, they did it first here with Tommy's cowbell and the cymbal choke and everything that he does on Livewire. They did it first here. And then we get this crazy scream from Udo. It's just hurting canines in the proximity and, that kind of thing. It's a really, really fun song. And it's just got so much energy, and I love how simple and direct it is. Talking about simple and direct, I think, Don't Go Stealing My Soul Away is probably the most AC/DC-like. It's very straightforward, very AC/DC-like groove. You get to the verses, and there's this underlying cowbell that kind of drives through there. The verses are very melodic. I mean, the chorus, sorry, let me get that correct. Don't go stealing my soul away. Nah, 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 nah. And it's more poppy in its delivery from a vocal standpoint, with a very straightforward, heavy underneath. Again, that's kind of AC/DC's formula, isn't it? So, it's just another great solo. All of Wolf's playing on here is really, really great. And the feel of it feels really nice where it's placed after flash rocking, because I think the uh, placement for the track listing on this is really good. All the songs flow really, really well to the other, and it's got a nice tight ending on this track. So it's very accessible. You got to have something like this on an album just to balance things out, which of course then leads to Princess of the Dawn, which is just kind of epic. There's just so much going on here. And it's just drony, and it's, like this underlying ostinato that bang, gang, gadam, gadam, and it just simple bass drum, quarter notes, a 1 and 3, snare on 2 and 4. Far cry from how they opened with Fast as a Shark. Far cry. And it just builds and builds and builds. They bring it up, light, shade, bright, dark, super cool, adding just a power chord at the end of a chorus and just let it hang. No reason while it chugs underneath in the other channel, just let it go. No need to add anything else. No syncopations from Kaufman. And you're just kind of absorbing it, and but you can't get away from that droning. That is just permeating off this track. And we get to the solo section, and Wolf kind of goes nuts. We've got all kinds of stuff going on here. He's just kind of showing off his talent in all the areas. Heavy whammy bar stuff, a lot of flashy hand, what am I trying to say? Tapping stuff. Thank you. And then what does he do? Something that Wolf is so good at. He nails a theme which starts to permeate. And all of a sudden, it's that Fear of the Dark sing along that everybody goes, okay, I know that. I can sing that. And they start to sing it when he plays it because they're waiting for it. And it's a really cool experience whenever you've seen any band that can do that. You'd go see Sabbath with Dio, or Heaven and Hell, or even Dio. Anytime they went, oh, the whole crowd would sing it. And it's a riff. It's not a melody line. It's a riff. And they would latch on to what Wolf was doing. They bring it back to that gorgeous drony. And it just keeps moving and keeps moving. And I just love until they get that last kind of little folksy na 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 na. You can almost see people jigging, with their big steins, which is, very that part of the world.
Yes.
I think it's kind of fun. And I love we're Prince, and they keep kind of got the dancing going on. And you're just like, and all of a sudden, what? Oh, we're done. And I'm like, very cool. Very cool. And we just looked at each other and we're like, start over. Turn it over and start again. This is my favorite Accept album by far. It is my top ranked. For me, it's a 10 out of 10. And it's a awesome listen every time this comes out. So that's my kind of long-winded, sorry.
Oh.
So
no, you kidding me?
That was fantastic.
That was fantastic. Absolutely. Thank you, Peter. Absolutely wonderful. So, all right. All right, John, I'll let you have at it.
All right. About 90% of the things I'm going to say Peter said, and I'm not going to go in depth with the syncopation and all that. I've played bass in the past, but I'm I'm no longer a musician, so I can't talk on that level. But to me, this is what Sad Wings of Destiny would be the growth of heavy metal. And it's interesting that Accept's Restless and Wild, Judas Priest's Sad Wings of Destiny are albums that didn't sell very well. They have yet to certify, but the hardcore fans know it and the musicians know it. I wonder how many of these fans first heard this, formed their own bands. Like you were talking, Peter, you were talking about what Scott Ian said.
Yeah.
Spot on. I mean, ask any heavy metal musician in a long-standing heavy metal band, and chances are good they're going to say Restless and Wild was a strong influence on their musical foundation. I would agree with Peter. It's not my favorite record by them, but it's a very important record. It was ahead of its time. It was speed metal before, well, Fast as a Shark was speed metal before we had a name for it.
Right.
How important does the band think this record is? 3 of these songs are among their 5 most played songs.
Yep.
5 of these songs, well, parts of 5 of these songs are represented on a tour 41 years later, even as they had more commercial success with the next few albums. And with albums with Mark. Let's get into it. I'm going to repeat a lot of the same things. Killer chorus, double bass goodness from Stefan Kaufman. This was produced by the band at Dieter Dirk Studios. I don't believe Dieter actually produced the album.
Right.
This is iconic in Accept's history and heavy metal. Powerful, tight. This band was super, super tight. They've always been known for putting on a great live performance. You could tell they were very well rehearsed. Musically tight and ferocious. The musical bridge kills. It's all variations off of that riff. Great solo from Wolf on here. As Pete said, Wolf did all the guitar work on here. And this is where we heard remnants of Udo's powerful voice, but that scream at the beginning of Fast as a Shark after the needle goes away from the record. We heard that. It's taking us on a ride. Number 3 most played song by Accept Live, still played to this day. Number 5 most played song is the next song, Restless and Wild. Vicious heavy metal, that galloping riff. We're talking about bridges. This is a fantastic bridge in the Accept canon. This is an outstanding track. It has the right amount of drama to it in the verses where they let that guitar chord sing, and then they go dun 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 dun, dun. And then it goes and then Udo sings over it, and then he screams dun 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 dun, dun. Pre-chorus killer. The chorus where they go Restless and Wild, precursor to what the choruses, the army-like voice choruses. They probably started in earnest for anyone to know on Balls of the Wall. But here, you hear where it's coming from. You didn't hear it on Breaker, but you heard it here. You heard the remnants. And once they did Balls of the Wall, the title song, then it was like, okay, we're going to do this the rest of our career. Well, except maybe for one record.
Right.
So, but excellent track. Still do this live. Still goes over well. Head of Pack, Starling, Vicious, Titan Driving, pre-chorus kills. Riffs in the chorus are very strong. Very strong track. Shake your heads. This is a little slower. It's an anthem. Menacing. We got a neoclassical solo here from Wolf. Pre-chorus is very strong. When the second guitar comes in, it starts to chug. That brings a different dimension to the song. Another strong track again. Neon Nights. I would have never thought of, was it Nothing Else Matters you were comparing it to Metallica? Yep. I would have never caught that, but as soon as you said, I'm like, yep. But it has that atmospheric opening, and then the histrionics with the. I thought that was a bass from 45 seconds to 1:08 because it feels like bass. It feels like something out of Anesthesia Pulling Teeth. The way he uses the flanger on there, but it's the guitar. This just builds and builds. It's an epic. A lot of great accompaniment here. At the end of the song, they pick up the tempo when they go, Neon Nights, Neon Nights.
Right.
This is one they do pull out now and then live. When I saw them in 2022, they actually pulled this song out when Jason McMaster was singing for his sick Mark Janillo that night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they pulled this one out because what was happening is we were talking about reading lyrics for Thunder and Lightning if they do it. Well, when they did the stuff from Too Mean to Die, you could tell that Jason was reading the lyrics that were taped to the floor, but all the other stuff, he knew it because he said to us, hey, I'm loving this more than you. I've loved this band forever. That's what he said to us. Neon Ice, excellent track. Get Ready is the only reason I wouldn't give this album a 10. I think it's just too Crocus, too AC/DC like for me. I can never get into this song. I mean, I don't hate it, but I just think everything else is just so strong. It's too formulaic for me, even with the backing vocals. Hey, I was never can get into this song. So based on that, you know where my ranking's going to be because I love everything else. Demon's Night sounds a little like Head of the Pack, a little bit more menacing. The intensity really returns on this track. We're back to metal. I love the wordplay on here. Lights, blinding your mind. Sparks, the eyes of fire. Rain, tears of the devil. Excellent. For a band who was really trying to find themselves early on lyrically.
Right.
They had come a long way by this point. This song, along with the next track, Flash Rockin' Man, is part of a medley they are doing on the 2024 tour, along with the tracks Starlight from Breakers and Losers and Winners from Balls to Wall. Flash Rockin' Man. Pete, as soon as you said Maiden, I think they borrowed this riff, tweaked it a little bit, used it for 2 Minutes to Midnight, which was a year and a half before Power Slave. Another strong track, Rocks Like Hell. It's just very driving, very strong, works very well. And for all the reasons Peter gets into it with the syncopation, I mean, on it. I mean, for a song that sounds simple, there's actually a lot going on.
Yeah.
Don't Go Stealing My Soul Away. This is a killer track. It sounds more like American hard rock, but I love it. It works very well. This is a song about life on the road. Maybe some people would compare this to like a Midnight Highway, but I love Midnight Highway too, because I just think it may not be, maybe it's a little more accessible, but it's just a great song that works. I think this song kicks. Princess of the Dawn, that riff and that groove can go on for 16 minutes instead of 6 minutes. And you wouldn't get bored because it's hypnotic. Another live staple, their second most played song live. Yes, even more than Fast as a Shark. It's just got that memorable riff, that groove. And then it's a showcase for Wolf and how talented a guitarist he was. as I was saying on the earlier shows, he was trying to find his way. A lot of Uli John Roth in his style. By this point, he had found his style. Simple yet effective. It's got the classical overtones on it. Lyrically, it's like a Cinderella story brought to life. It's one of their most iconic tracks. A template for many metal bands to borrow from in the future. So, yes, very important album in the progression of heavy metal. You know what my ranking is going to be. It's going to be a 9.5. Thanks.
Oh man, yeah, that's what I'm just gonna say right now. That's what I give it. I give it a 9.5. So just to go ahead and get that part out of the way. But yeah, just like I alluded to earlier, what a time to be alive when these albums were coming out. And I can only wish I was in Peter's shoes, picking up this brand new release of Restless and Wild and dropping that needle, and you're hearing this for the first time back in 1982 and 1983, whatever year,
Yeah.
probably 83,
Yeah.
or any of those albums, as just a new, hey, this looks different, this looks interesting, and think, wow, I can't even. The closest I could probably ever get to that was probably Wasp and a band called Malaya Rage in 1988. Those are probably the only two bands that I can probably honestly say I had no knowledge of what these guys sounded like. But boy, when I listened to these, when I picked them up and dropped them down, boom, I was on it. Yeah, I don't think I have a whole lot extra I can really add to any of this, but Fast as a Shark, you got to love that. I Here's the thing about the intro, and Wiki kind of fills us in on a little funny story. Apparently, the recording they used on this song, apparently there's a very young Dieter Dirks on the recording. And they thought, hey, this might make for a nice little inside joke. So who knew, right?
I can only imagine that being that popular a melody had been re-recorded by unlimited number of people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really really kind of crazy to think about it, but so to me this was like this was Accept saying, they, to quote Roddy Piper, they've come to chew bubble gum and to kick ass, and they are all out of bubble gum. And that's essentially what this song is. I mean, I don't have any other way of describing this song. This just bludgeons. I mean, the riffs are not the most intricate, most mind-numbing kind of riff, but it works. And sometimes that's all you need. Keep it simple. Keep a good simple riff tight, playing good chugging rhythm, and boom, that's what you get. Kind of that, don't know what life's gonna come at you because it's gonna come at you fast as a shark. That's the whole idea. But I mean, golly, this is what an opening. And then just how many times have we talked about the 1-2 punch, John?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Boom, boom. Here comes Restless and Wild. That 1-2 punch.
Yep.
Ooh.
And it only took one snare drum crack to do it.
Yes.
That's right.
That's right. That's exactly right. And so I'm going to throw this one to you, John, or to Peter, actually. You know what some of the parts of this song remind me of? Reminds me of a fellow Portrait label bandmate that they had. And they came out with an album, I think it was around 1977, I think it was. And they had this little track on there called Barracuda. I can hear a little bit of a Barracuda gallop going on in this song.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, there were not a lot pre this era bands that lived in the galloping world.
No.
Immigrant Song was one of the first we heard and went, oh my, wow, what is that? And
Right.
of course, Barracuda is Heart's Led Zeppelin.
Exactly.
and and then it evolves from there.
But so even with some of the stuff that Wolf's playing, like those similar harmonics,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of led into that instrumental section toward the end of Barracuda. That's kind of what it reminded me of. But yeah, you got Udo's kind of soft, and he's just kind of almost almost an evil like voice, but low, and then he breaks out in that higher pitch. I'm not gonna try to sing it because the micro just distorted anyway. Just a great song. I love the ebbs and flows of this song. Uh, again, don't just try not to refuse to settle for the norm kind of thing. It's just like just go live your life. And then the memorable gang vocals. You know, here's the other thing about Accept that I feel like we've come to see them um kind of grow and mature. Initially on those first couple albums, those gang vocals were pretty high.
Yes.
And now they're getting very low,
Guttural.
guttural.
Yeah.
It's like, "Rrr," the way it should sound. If you're going to be doing these gang vocals, yeah, you don't want that. You know, maybe it
Yeah.
works. It works for Queen, but it's not going to work for this kind of stuff.
Right. Right.
So call it. Maybe they dropped them down. I don't know. Whatever you want to, however, which way you want to call it, but that's where they find that voice with the gang vocal here. So I think that's where what's the word I'm looking for? Progression, that whole progression of how they did this. Great track. Ahead of the pack. I almost felt like this was a little Judas Priest like at times and how it felt. It's still a great song. Again, love that vocal style that he's doing. Just trying to stay focused and despite the challenges that life brings you on. That's what kind of this is talking about. But it's still a great track. um Shake Your Heads, you get a mid-tempo throbber, as I call it here, again talking about the frustrations of the modern life. But yeah, I think, and you get another good gang chorus. You got that nice Euro feel in the leads. I think another great track. I would love to have heard live. I can just imagine the crowd yelling back for this one. I think it was a good one. And plus you get the whole bang your head kind of thing. Although, we wouldn't hear bang your head till Metal Health would come out, which would probably not be much longer after this
Nope,
album,
not too much
actually.
after.
Months
Not
after.
too much longer now that I thought about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Neon Nights, you got that nice opening, and then I don't know. I was trying to think of what that effect was that Wolf was using, and I'm kind of between like a phase shifter, Octavia, kind of an octave thing, like Jimmy, like I think of like on Purple Haze, but just used in a lower end. Maybe flange or chorus. Maybe it's a mixture of all of them. Who knows? Um, Still, almost this almost had I almost felt like a little bit of a heaven and hell feel,
Hmm.
a little bit. It kind of has that Dio Sabbath feel a little bit. I kind of got that impression. Um, Again, you get the somber feel, the way Udo is singing, and these whole, the idea of the neon light, life in the neon lights, and where life and dreams maybe sometimes can blur a little bit. I think there's some good imagery there. I really nice spots toward the end of the solo. One of the things I love when Wolf does is when he does these solos and he does this it's like he's just trying to squeeze out as much emotion as you can possibly find. And this would become a trademark for Wolf. And this is really the first album where you really hear this. You don't really hear it too much on the previous albums, but you really hear it, I think, on this one. good way to end the side. You get ready, chaos, adrenaline, gonna be a wild night. Feels like man, I don't know, to me it feels like a little bit of with the drum intro. I'm surprised nobody said living after midnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really what it reminded me of until the guitars kick in. Then it's a completely different song, but that's kind of what it reminded me of. But a good strong rocking song. You get a little bit of 12 bar blues kind of in the guitar chord there. So at least that's what my ears were hearing. So you get a good chugging rocker here to start off the song. I think it was a B side to Fast as a Shark. I think. I think it was a B-side to one of the two songs. I can't remember. Demon's Night, The Devil's Work as a Foot. You got a good slow grinding groove going on throughout the entire song. You know, really gives a good creepy feel in the lyrics. Um, this kind of stuff horror movies are made of. You gotta love that. Great track. Flash Rockin' Man. Here is where they take their influences. They mix them together, and now they have become the influence where bands would come later on and they would take this kind of riff and kind of do variations with. You know,
Great point.
I've heard this kind of a riff. An early example for me that I've heard would be later on one of the Metal Massacre albums put out by Metal Blade was Metal Church, and they do a song called "The Brave." And that song kind of you can hear that like on the soundtrack of Decline of Western Civilization Part Two, but it's on that it has that kind of you know that kind of feel to it. Malaya Rage, I think, would borrow from this song. They on their album, their debut album called "Kill to Survive," and this reminds me a lot of Beginning of the End. And that kind of has that, you know, it kind of has that kind of feel. But I think these are the kind of riffs that again now they are the ones being the influence, and that's that. I mean, we'll probably being a part of this medley that'll be great to see live. I love the transition of the moods that you get in this song. In the beginning, on the first half of the song, you get of course that's the rock star. You know, they want to feel your volume, which take that for however way you want to look at it. But it's like it's the life of the rock star. But then when it transitions to this darker sound, which is like the cons of being the rock star, where you're getting the savior, the yes man and all, and you're still kind of alone in the crowd kind of thing. So you get these two nice attitudes in the song, which really plays well, I think, for how the song is. So I really dug that about the song. Again, great song. Don't Go Stealing My Soul Away. Yeah, another song about missing that someone on the road. Does to me felt like an AC/DC kind of a rocker, but again, maybe early 80s hard rock, maybe at the time. Still not a bad track. The epic closer, Princess of the Dawn. I agree. They could play that riff for 16 minutes, and I would not be bored in the least bit. I love the fantasy lyrics here. I love that again that harmonizer, that Octavia, whatever that is that they use in the ending. The nice flourishes of acoustic guitar. I mean, you hear that in some of like the pre-choruses and the chorus and stuff. You get he does the one solo where it's almost made to sound like a mandolin. Well, that's just a little studio trick that they did there, still on guitar. Great track, great end. Love how they were building that ending and end up. It's even more fun to listen to on the iPhone when you're in your car and you're listening to that song, and all of a sudden you go back to the beginning, which maybe that's where some of the stuff is influenced in that song. It goes into that little that intro of the German song, and you go right back to that, and
Right.
it's like, whoa, okay, wasn't expecting it because it is so abrupt, just. But yeah, 9.5 easily. Gosh, it's just I again I cannot even I can only imagine what this had to be like picking it up and hearing it for the first time in 1983. That
Well, hearing them open for Maiden on the Peace of Mind tour, holy smokes. I mean, Maiden's Maiden, and they were exceptional. But there was I'm trying to figure out my actual numbers. But I know I saw them here, balls, metal, somewhere in there 4 or 5 times. Because when there's support, you don't get to check dates, and I can't remember when I'm looking at my headliners as to who was with what. But I have never seen a quote opener who was as polished, as professional. They just had everything in the right place.
Yeah.
All their I's and dotted, the T's were crossed, visually, sonically. And with this record, I think they really learned an important lesson. Because there is something that gets lost in translation the bigger you get. The bigger the stadium, the bigger the arena, everything else, the busier and the more noodly you get, the more difficult it is to translate that into the audience for digestion. Mm-hmm. Drummers specifically have this problem when if they're doing a solo or some kind of thing. The tendency is let me show you all my super chops. Let me do all this kind of stuff. And we can talk about why drum solos may be boring, but that's a different show. But the point is, the difference is people go, I hear it, but nobody's got any idea what nuances you're doing. They have no idea that you're doing something cool with this hand or the other. But if you come out and do something super simple with space that's got power and energy, which is why the tribal drums live always work. It's all of a sudden everybody's, because it's in our DNA. Drumming's the first language on the planet. That's how we communicated. All of us have that ingrained in our souls, that we can communicate through percussive impact. And Accept got to the point on this record where you get to Princess of the Dawn, and the reason it so hits so strong, especially live, because of how simple it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And it just allows the energy and then the volume and the impact to all take its place. And the analogy I use is this. When I saw the Scorpions in 85, maybe the loudest concert I've ever heard in my life. Painful. But the song that had the most impact was Still Loving You, because it had space.
Yes.
Now I heard the bass drum, and yes, it was kind of crushing my rib cage, and the snare drum that was making me deaf in one side of my head. But it was that spread, that dichotomy. Songs like Can't Get Enough, Love Drive, these other faster tracks became just a wash because I couldn't distinguish stuff. As soon as they slowed it down, I thought, my God, this sounds mammoth. And there's a lesson there. And Accept learns that lesson with this record and has carried over to everything they have done since, because Wolf's never left that. And it's a great evolution for them, because it does translate, and they do start copying from themselves as we go along, which is fine. Nothing wrong with that. If you're going to borrow from yourself. So, I mean, I think that's maybe a small analogy.
No, very good. That's a perfect tie-in. So, now, John, I think you finally get to actually do a few tour dates with this one, probably.
Believe it or not, there was only 29.
Oh, okay.
There's
At least what's on setlist.com.
At least correct. 60 in Germany alone. They start August 11 in 1982 at tennis in Helder, Helden, Netherlands. Cattle trade, Old Cotton, Netherlands. Center Cultural, Chennai, Belgium. Markthal, Hamburg, Germany. That's 2 dates. And then they play Hofterlo in Borgerhout, Belgium. Theater de la Mutualite in Paris, France. Roxy Music Hall in Hensburg, Germany. Ziegele in Weiden, Germany. Draken in Stockholm, Sweden. Zecke in Bochum, Germany. Stadthalle Köln in Moheim, Cologne, Germany. 2 dates at Stadthalle in Ludwigsburg, Germany. They played a festival, June 25, 1983. Archo Dog in the Netherlands. Also on the bill. Love to say that. Merciful Fate
Oh,
for the
oh,
Melissa album.
oh.
Yeah.
Raven for All for One. Band call. Ooh, I didn't write that down right. Vandenberg, self-titled.
Hmm.
Oh, Trance is the name of the other band. Power and Fusion. I never heard of Trance. Apparently, they're pretty big in Europe. What was played on from this album live? 8 tracks. Fast as a Shark, Restless and Wild, Get Ready, Flash Rockin' Man, Restless. Ooh, I wrote that twice. Head of Pack, Neon Nights, Princess of the Dawn. They would not play this album in its entirety until January 25th, 2011, where they played it in Pratheim, Switzerland. And that would be the only time to this date they've played Shake Your Heads live. But eventually they would hit every song on this album. Oh, Demon's Night was first played in 2010, and they played it a handful of times since then. So there you go.
Wow. All right. Well,
And as indicated, it'll be touched on 5 times during the 2024 tour here in the United States.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. I mean, by this time this didn't trouble the American charts. So which, but boy, I'll tell you what. This one I have a feeling there's going to be a little bit more talk about that and what this album will bring. So before we wrap this up, Peter, what kind of shows is out there that we should be pointing folks in their direction to see you tag teaming with and stuff of that nature?
Oh, well, thank you. I've got more than a few kind of semi-recent shows out there with Mr. Kerr over on Rock Daydream Nation. We've dove into quite a few things there. Contrarians, I was pretty busy last month, so there's a few that are out there for that. And I've got a couple pending, and I'll leave to the mysteries of the world. But those are typically where I'm headed the most, and you can find me if you're looking.
There you go. And John, of course, he's got his program cooking. The Smithereen Saturday is doing really good. And then he just pulls you're pulling out all kinds of like random albums here and there. So it's really cool. I mean, you have like the album after, this, and now we're talking the album after, that was my inside joke to that. But that's a cool little thing when you got cooking with there. But yeah, again, folks, I call this show my music corner. It's not my metal corner. It just happens to work out that way that we got more into metal. But John's bringing a whole different genre of stuff to talk about, and it's really cool to go check it out. So definitely be checking stuff out.
I find that topic unbelievably and endlessly fascinating because the follow-up to the big one is the most challenging time of an artist's entire career.
Right.
It is it is make or break in a lot of cases. Sometimes it does really, really well, but if it doesn't measure up to its bigger brother, there's trouble on the horizon, which makes no sense. Because if you were to do it without the one, and that was the big one, you'd be like, wow, this band's really huge.
Mm-hmm.
So I really enjoy that concept of
Thank you.
what's next, what happens next. And every band that had a seminal album is subject to it,
Oh yeah.
which I think is
yeah.
awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So there you go, folks. A lot of good stuff to check out. Of course, you see me tagging a bunch of different channels in the description with a bunch of places that you can just go to. You know, everybody's got some great content on there. It's almost too much to see sometimes, but if you love music like we do, you can just get lost in a lot of great stuff out there. So for the professor, Peter Jones, thank you, my friend. It's always good to have you in my music corner. And one of these days, it'll be good to see just you and John do a tag team on the Music Nut program. I think that would be fun. Obviously, for my co-captain, John the Music Nut, John Clauser, Johnny Metal, the Metal Dad. Next week, we're going to get your balls to the wall, my friend. Rock forever, y'all. We'll see you soon.